Back here once again with another episode rundown, this time for Battlebots World Championship 7, Episode 4 for regular season, Week 4. This was the end of Round 1 and the start of Round 2 here. We saw their debut, some exciting robots like Monsoon and Black Dragon, some interesting robots like Kraken, Shreddit Bro, and of course Horizon. And of course we also saw the return of some very powerful contenders, robots like Quantum, robots like Hypershock and Whiplash, our main event level robots. We're talking about all these robots and numerous others here as we run down 7 more fights here. All the week's fights at Battlebots right here, right now at the Combot Collective, so stay tuned.
Oh my God! Wow! This is the biggest flame we've ever seen!
Has preserved enough energy to get in the flip on Carbine. We're gonna go all the way. Oh my God! That's gonna hurt! Grab the milk, Jenny!
Welcome to the Combot Collective.
Hello everybody and welcome to another Battlebots Rundown episode here at the Combot Collective, bringing everything you want to know about the 2022 Battlebots World Championship 7th season. I'm your host, as always, Sterling Brown, aka Quarry 300th, former writer at Third Law Sports and current Battlebots subreddit moderator. And it was a very fascinating episode. Like I said at the top, we have finished off all of our Round 1 action and we are now moving forward to Round 2. Including some matchups like the aforementioned Gruff versus Quantum, Whiplash versus Hypershock. But we also have Malice versus Emulsifier, the first of those 3 matchups we are going to be discussing here today. But before we discuss any Round 2 matchup, we got to talk about our opener. It was Monsoon versus Black Dragon International meeting. So of course, if you like what you're seeing here in this video and you like everything we're talking about here, all the stats, all the details, please give the Combot Collective channel a subscription, like this video, leave a comment, and check out all of our social media. We'll get more into detail about that. And of course, check out that giveaway in the description below. We'll talk about the sponsor later in the video. We got a robot that pertains to them. But if you are interested, check out the giveaway. We are going to be giving away this Robots Ruin My Life bag. Of course, RRML, our sponsor. And inside this tote bag, plenty of goodies, such as the Star Child / Omega Team patch, such as the Ripperoni Battlebots poker chip, and even some Battlebots and TCC stickers. We got the logo stickers in there. We got the Pori Loves Blood Sports stickers in there, among numerous other stickers. Join that raffle. It is in the description below. We would love to get some people. We got 37 during our last giveaway for the Hexbug Duck. I wonder if we can break it with this one. I would certainly love to see it. But yes, without further ado, you're done hearing me ramble. Let's talk about these 7 Battlebots fights which just happened. This episode kicked off with an international affair between 2 true forces of our sport, England and Brazil, with the returning Monsoon versus Black Dragon. Monsoon, of course, captained once again by Tom Brewster, makes its first stateside trip since 2019, but it did get some experience in the arena last year at Extreme Robots, going 2-0 with a pair of knockouts, earning it a number 18 Combot Collective ranking entering this season. It enters this return to Battlebots with a setup designed for reach, armed with their signature 45-pound brawler blade and a pair of very short wedges, since Tom Brewster's main plan, like I said, was to outreach everything with this big 45-pound spinner. The 2020 semifinalist Black Dragon, meanwhile, much similar to Copperhead, finds itself with the 3rd new captain in as many seasons, with veteran roboteer Julio Cortez now in charge of the team. But longtime driver Gabriel Fertozzi still does drive Black Dragon itself. That's pretty good to hear. But now Black Dragon comes armed with their usual 40-pound egg beater and plow front, but this team also has a pair of medium-length wedgelets armed on the robot to help get under Monsoon, because unlike Tom Brewster, Julio's main strategy was to avoid upfront contact and focus on Monsoon's flanks. That being said, the fight would kick off with Black Dragon immediately foregoing that strategy, heading on with a face-first box rush to Monsoon, allowing Black Dragon to lead off with that impressive opening impact, pirouetting Monsoon end over end. But after this, Black Dragon would have clear issues with its right side drive for the fight's remainder, leaving the Brazilian robot prone for most of this opening minute, as Monsoon would go on to outstrike Black Dragon 7-1 in the opening 50 seconds. Monsoon would juggle Black Dragon, even ripping off the aforementioned wedgelets on it. But at the 2 minutes and 15-second mark of the fight, we'd see Monsoon's weapon completely fall dead, leaving us with a classic case of a perfectly driving robot with zero weapon fighting a lip drive robot armed with a full power weapon. That being said, as Julio would state, driving would win this fight, and he would be right. 2 more solid strikes by Black Dragon in the fight's back half would take back the lead for Uriah, but also take out Monsoon, with the latter impact of these flipping Monsoon over and forcing it to, as we say in robot combat, do the thing right by the upper deck, leaving Monsoon prone on those top wedges, which are usually designed to keep the robot, still wedgy when it's inverted, costing it the fight here. Smartly, Uriah would leave the spinner alone and take a knockout victory in 2 minutes and 5 seconds, making it 1-0 with a rare knockout victory for Black Dragon, who pushes its way towards Battlebots history more and more as its never knocked out streak now extends to 22 career fights inside the Battlebox. The Brazilian egg beater only needs to survive its next 3 fights to tie Bite Force's 25 fight record, and this includes meeting with Beta, Quantum, and Riptide. 2 more of the best robots in all of Europe, and then a main event level meeting versus the knockout artist and 2021 Rookie of the Year Riptide. Black Dragon is a perennial playoff favorite, but Monsoon, just like Ominous, is once again discovering that Battlebots competition is simply just on another level compared to what happens in the UK. Monsoon's serious weapon reliability issues which date back to Monsoon's time as Tauron version 3, still seem to persist. And if Monsoon and Tom Brewster want to get back to that 2018 echelon they once reached, they need to find the ability to keep a weapon going until the closing buzzer. They have a mostly challenging schedule up ahead with the Rookie Horizon, followed by 2 top 4 level robots in Whiplash and Death Roll. Ooh, Team Monsoon really needs to pick it up moving forward. Next up, like I mentioned in the top of the video, we have our first round 2 fight of the regular season, a meeting between 2 0-1 robots which had judges' decisions in their first round, but with very different reactions to those performances. Starting with perhaps the most impressive loser of all of regular season round 1, the NHRL 30-pound 2022 champion Emulsifier comes in with a ton of momentum, but little to no changes from their last meeting with Fusion. Their opponent, Malice, like I mentioned, also went to the distance versus Lockjaw, but due to weapon woes did very little in that fight. Despite that, much similar to Bots FC, Team Malice also entering a robot nearly unchanged from their last fight, keeping the long bunny ear forks alongside that 55-pound weapon, the drumstick, which outweighs Emulsifier's weapon by just 5 pounds. But despite that weight advantage, Team Malice were still very wary of Emulsifier's powerful blade, and would state that their strategy was to use those bunny ear forks to outwedge Emulsifier, so they could primarily strike the wedge instead of the main vertical spinning weapon. Bots FC, on the other hand, intended a very different strategy, stating that Malice's drumstick weapon was not one solid part like Emulsifier's, and that the team wanted to try and defang Malice, rip those 2 big teeth out of the drumstick, take them right out there, maybe even bring the bolts that hold them in alongside with it. Talking about the fight though, we'd see both of these strategies enact right in front of us, with Malice going wide left while Emulsifier sat back initially, and then charged right into Malice's drumstick blade. Emulsifier would rock Malice to open up the fight, and then it would follow up with 5 more successive vertical spinner strikes in the fight's opening 30 seconds, ripping off one of the bunny forks, dismembering Malice's frame, and once again forcing Malice's weapon to have some issues early on into a fight. The last of these 6 total impacts though would throw Emulsifier backwards, shoving it into the upper deck and flipping the tracked robot over. Emulsifier quickly would right itself while Malice struggles in the corner, but Emulsifier just simply would not move. I have no clue why Emulsifier wasn't moving. I mean, the vertical spinner was still spinning at full bore, and the treads on Emulsifier seemed to be moving fine. I mean, we could see him just rolling along, because I first thought the robot was stuck on the wall, but no, not the case at all. Nonetheless, Emulsifier dead in the water while Malice could still spin in circles despite that dismembered frame, giving Bunny, Malice, and the rest of her crew a knockout victory in 1 minute and 52 seconds. Now, like Chris Rose would say in the replays, past seasons this may have been a double knockout judge's decision, and one that likely Emulsifier would have won. But perhaps for the first time ever this season, we are really starting to see these rule changes, ones which we discussed in a TCC news video a few months back, have some proper action inside the arena. Malice survives by sheer, survivability, but the weapon is still a massive question mark, and Team Malice need at least one seriously dominant W against either Valkyrie or Gruff if they still want to see the top 32. It appears that David Small has rejoined the team. I don't know if it's temporary or if he's just on 2 rosters, but this may be an X factor that Team Malice needs if they want to keep doing okay here. Emulsifier, meanwhile, what a frustrating first half of the season for them. A crazy impressive loss in round 1, and then a much impressive loss, but still a strong loss in round 2. Like Kenny Florian would say, we could easily be looking at a 2-0 rookie machine right now, but it's just not looking that way for Emulsifier and Bots FC, sadly. Thankfully, though, for the spinner, all the kinetic energy robots are out of the way. It's just Banshee and Quantum remaining on Emulsifier's second half schedule. Quantum may provide some drama, crushing into Emulsifier's tracks maybe, but Emulsifier, if it can win these fights, I think it still has a path into the top 32 because it looked very impressive during these last 2 fights. Now, before we talk about this next fight, we already talked about their giveaway, and one of the robots is coming up here in just a second. The Combot Collective is, as always, sponsored by robotsruinmylife.com. Their link is in the description below, and they are the merchandise and exposure provider for numerous Battlebots and NHRL teams in the world of robot combat. You know, Battlebots robots such as Starchild, who we're just about to talk about here, Ripperoni, and Shreddit Bro, who we talk about later, all partnered with robotsruinmylife.com. And of course, NHRL robots such as the 3-pound version of Shreddit Bro, Blackbird, the double vertical spinners of Wake and Bake, they are also partnered with robotsruinmylife.com alongside numerous other East Coast robot combat teams. If you're looking to pick up some robot combat merchandise, or if you are a robot combat team looking to find a merchandise partner, check out the link below, robotsruinmylife.com. They have everything you're going to want robot combat related, from prints, shirts, poker chips, buttons, stickers, everything a fan could desire. And also, of course, check out our giveaway. They have their logo on this tote bag here. Please check it out in the description below. But that's enough talking from me. Now let's talk about one of Robots Ruin My Life's partnered robots, Starchild, in their debut fight here against Overhaul. And starting with Starchild here, now that the shilling is out of the way, of course, like I've mentioned plenty before on this channel in the past, this robot, Starchild, has its roots in the 3-pound division, having some success, even making the 2021 NHRL finals, but this would be Starchild's 250-pound heavyweight debut here. The robot has that signature twacking blade, and at least in this fight, is using Tigris wheels like we saw Huge use in episode 1. And on the other side of the arena, while Starchild is brand new to the weight class, its opponent Overhaul is one of the few still standing reboot originals from the 2015 Battlebots season, and it has the experience but not the success to show it. Last year, Overhaul had yet another tough year, going 2-3, only picking up a singular exhibition victory at both Battlebots and Robotica during that time span, giving it a Combot Collective ranking of 117. In this fight, the team would run a similar clamp to what we see in its profile picture right here, but instead of those wedges, we see a pair of nubbed forks, perhaps designed for clasping and shoving it into the spokes of Starchild's wheels. Now for me, this was quite an odd one to do notes for, but I did my best here. We would see Overhaul immediately kick this fight off with an offensive push before quickly losing part of its right side drive. This drive issue would hinder Overhaul significantly, but =0 would persevere, as overall we'd see Starchild manage a good handful of twack strikes, but we'd see quite a few more instances from Overhaul grappling Starchild, showing great fits of control in the process here by slamming into the screws twice and even managing a perfect clasp just a minute into the fight, one which Overhaul would manage to muster 2 suplexes out of. Eventually, this awkward scrap would go down to the judges, as Overhaul manages to pick up only its 4th win inside the battle box during a bit of a back and forth affair here. And now I gotta say, upon watching this fight a second time for the notes here, I really do feel like this fight was much closer than I thought it was on my first watch. Overhaul did impress, but it seriously lucked out taking on such a new and experimental robot in round 1, as that drive hindrance would have left Overhaul a sitting duck for probably 80% of the Battlebots field this year. I never thought I'd say this, but Overhaul though now has a shot at the top 32 if they can really impress during one of these last 3 meetings versus Claw Viper, Combot, or Shreddit Bro. Combot may be a tall task, but Claw Viper is a fellow control bot, which means Overhaul has a chance there, And Shreddit Bro's performance, which we'll get to later on in the episode here, definitely left much to be desired. So overall, you cannot count Overhaul out of this season just yet. Starchild, meanwhile, is such a precise robot to be effective with, but Brandon Zelensky, I would say, did pretty well in this debut fight versus such a tricky first opponent to hit. The alien Twackbot has Mammoth, Gigabyte, and Huge to go, robots which I believe it has just as much of a chance to defeat as it does be defeated by. Only time will tell for now as it pertains to Starchild and Omega Team. But of course, being one of our sponsors, the Combot Collective, which is nothing but the best to Brandon Zelensky, Omega Team, and Starchild. Now on to our midway major, a revolutionary war pitting two 1-0 non-spinners versus one another. It is the Red Hot Quantum who enters round 2 with perhaps the most buzz out of any other round 1 winner after its wild victory over Captain Shredderator versus Gruff, who beat Ripperoni in an odd encounter. Quantum is the best crusher in the world, and Ram Robotics certainly knew this, debuting a brand new attachment called the Bit for this fight, a horizontal fork across Gruff's signature lifting arm with intentions to snag and lift the jaw of Quantum, shoving it and lifting it all around the arena. The team also installed what Captain Sam McCamus would call bite blockers, which would serve as an extra layer of protection to the flamethrower areas of the robot. And while Gruff made these wild changes, Quantum kept it fairly simple, really only changing their wedge and most notably the main crushing tooth on Quantum, going from 2 teeth in round 1 versus Shredderator to 1 big tooth here in round 2. The intention here, of course, was to concentrate that bite on Gruff, who is perhaps the best armor machine in the entire Battlebots field, maybe the best armor machine in the heavyweight division right now. When they were running over strategies, Sam McCamus seemed confident that they could get face on and get the bit attachment right in place, but as soon as Quantum zipped over to the side of Gruff, the fight really felt like it was over before it started, thanks to a 12-second opening bite which crushed the right side bite blocker on Gruff and forced drive issues on that side as well for the fight's remainder. From here, Gruff was shaking and things were academic for the Cooper brothers at Rober Challenge, who despite having some struggles managing a good bite, would still control every single second of this fight, giving Gruff a tour of the battle box and even putting the lifter onto the upper deck momentarily. Eventually, in the final minute, we would see 4 more long-holding bites to Gruff's left side, the first causing an internal fire to Gruff, and the last completely crumbling Gruff's left flamethrower module, which miraculously still worked after Quantum's impact. That being said, when it was all said and done, Gruff had suffered a very rare knockout defeat late into the fight, succumbing to Quantum's crush at 2 minutes and 52 seconds. This was yet another legendary performance for Quantum, who may be looking the best it has ever looked since its championship debut at King of Bots 1. Quantum had a crushing grip on Gruff for a collective 45 seconds of that fight, bringing its overall crushing time this season to just under 100 seconds already, with 2 regular season fights still to go. These 2 fights will be against Black Dragon and newcomer Emulsifier, with the battle versus the former being a main event worthy one as Black Dragon puts its knockout free streak on the line. Gruff, meanwhile, in my opinion, still has an opening to reach the top 32. Its remaining meetings feature Witch Doctor and Malice, and if Gruff can hold its own and impress versus its Floridian neighbor in Witch Doctor, and then break Malice's weapon and maybe even knock it out, this robot has to at least be in the cards for a round of 32 play-in. But now we go from one legendary UK team versus a formidable Florida robot to another legendary UK team versus a formidable Florida robot. Try saying that 2 times fast. This time, it's a round 1 meeting between Beta, who returns after a disappointing playoff run in 2020, taking on the new look Kraken, who had an awful 2022, which left the robot ranked number 143 at the Combot Collective. The team knew after a season like that, the Crusher system had to go and more fights needed to be won by knockout. So in this full rebuild of the robot, the team has made Kraken a 4-wheel drive hammer saw / clampbot hybrid with UHMW wheels which have increased drive power, plus of course that brand new Kraken disc weighing in at 13 pounds with a 221 mph top speed. Changes have also been made to the Beta camp, but not as drastic, I would say. Due to criticisms by fans in 2020, the team now has a brand new weapons operator in the legendary UK roboteer and captain of heavyweight Thor, Jason Marston. Jason would not waste time bringing his flair to Beta, as in this fight we would see Beta armed with a very Thor-esque hammer, more of a hammer blade much like the Mary Special, but still in that iconic Beta hammer shape. Team Captain John Reed hoped that this hammer would be more durable for big-time spinner impacts, given what happened to Beta versus Rotator in 2020, almost costing the Hammerbot that fight. And speaking of John Reed, the Beta captain stated in strategies that he was anxious about fighting a robot nobody had ever seen before in Kraken, so he wanted to corner it very quickly and beat it to, quote-unquote, an absolute pulp. Matt Spurk with Kraken, meanwhile, had a much simpler strategy with the brand new hammer saw weapon. Focus on those open weak spots at Beta's side and try to reach those easy to touch internals. Also worth noting, Kraken's mini-bot Wally the Narwhal was in this fight, but it played about as much of a factor as it does in any of Kraken's fights, which is absolutely none. Now, talking about the fight itself, it was another odd one here. Beta would kick off the fight sluggish with nagging driver reception problems, while Kraken would debut its new weapon in impressive fashion, landing a huge strike to Beta before Matt Spurk would nearly enact his strategy perfectly around the fight's minute mark, getting to a prone Beta's side and tearing away at a small portion of the internals area, but not much, as around this time Kraken's new wheels began peeling, it seemed, giving the new Kraken some traction issues as well. With both machines having drive issues now, this led to a very slow middle portion of the fight, but with exactly 1 minute to go, everything would change. The biggest collision of the matchup at this time saw Beta's weapon bent beyond repair and Kraken without a working weapon or a left side drive. Kraken would do little to nothing in this window of time of 1 minute, while something in this collision would make Beta wide awake, as suddenly the Hammerbot was driving quite well and even managed 8 slapping strikes with that damaged hammer before the fight buzzer would sound. In total, Kraken managed 8 successful strikes in the opening 2 minutes before its weapon died, while Beta, who struggled with both its weapon and drive in that first 2 minutes, made up for it at the very end, overall going 10 for 14 on hammer strike attempts in this fight. This match would end up being one of the closest in this young Battlebots season, and Beta would end up taking the nod here. This had to have been an incredibly close call, and given Matt Spurk's bad luck with judges' decisions in the past, I almost expected us to see our first use of the brand new judges' decision appeal system. But that appeal system is just going to have to wait as the decision still stands. Now, I think both of these teams need to seriously work on their locomotion entering round 2, as both of these robots look pretty damn abysmal at the fight's halfway point. But the two really did have their shining moments, and I believe both Kraken and Beta are still well in the hunt for a top 32 position. Beta is 1-0 now and still has to fight some strong spinners in Black Dragon and Bloodsport, but perhaps the most anticipated Beta meeting is easily its next one, a battle between two of the best hammer bots in the last decade, Beta versus Shatter, to decide the world's best hammer machine. On Kraken's end of things, I gotta say, I did not expect that weapon to have the kind of pop it did during this fight. If the team can keep that weapon and Kraken's drive running a full 3 minutes versus the likes of Lucky, Copperhead, and Mammoth, its next 3 challengers, I do think Kraken can beat 2 of these 3 and find themselves well in the lower area playoff mix. Our penultimate fight this episode would be the final round 1 clash of the regular season, and a meeting between 2 designs we've talked plenty about in the past as machines with success in lower weight classes. The first of these 2 is a debuting robot from a veteran team with Shreddit Bro here. After 2 years of abysmal Pain Train performances, the team has completely rebranded their robot, and now Team Shreddit takes more from their signature beetle weight than ever before here. And in preparation for this debut fight, the team has Shreddit Bro pretty much looking how it does on the website picture, stands from a pair of tiny, and I mean tiny, UHMW feeder wedges, hoping to help give it a bit of extra contact to that scary 66-pound drum. Horizon, meanwhile, is led by veteran roboteer and first-time captain Joshua Kong, an individual who designed Horizon to be just like its 12-pound counterpart Skyline, an incredibly unique hobbyweight which performs on the West Coast in events like Smashbots. And just like Shreddit Bro, we see little to no changes at all to Horizon from its original robot picture, just chilling out and boasting those 2 scary 23-pound spinning discs. Now this fight, well, geez. Truly one of the fights of all time. Immediately, right out of the gate, it seemed like we were exhibiting some poor drive power on Shreddit Bro's end and a weak weapon spin up on Horizon's end, but eventually Horizon would draw first blood in the window of the opening 20 seconds of the fight, landing its first and most impressive strike of the entire battle, but also busting the chain on one of its 2 spinning discs. After this, we'd see a couple of weak strikes by both Horizon and Shreddit, but it was mostly just a bunch of driving around during the middle of this fight, huge shades of Foxic versus MR Speed Squared in Robot Wars 2016. During the final minute though, we'd see Shreddit manage the most impressive strike of this entire fight, throwing Horizon a few feet forward into the arena bumper, which damn near killed both robots as the pair would eventually slowly drive into each other, shit themselves, and die right as time drew up. At this point, the fight was going to the judges whether it was a double knockout or not, and a committee of 3 would mercifully go with Shreddit Bro here, likely because of that one last strong impact. Battlebots saved perhaps the toughest to watch of all the round 1 clashes for last year. I mean, I genuinely don't know if this fight would have made TV if it wasn't for every fight making TV this year. We saw massive first fight gremlins out of both machines, with both barely able to drive and both having weapons which really did not have the pop any of us were anticipating. Shreddit Bro though does have some potential, so we hope we can see them turn it around. And meanwhile, Horizon, at least, it is as neat and beautiful as we were all hoping for, and when the full spinner module I should say, is spinning, the robot looks absolutely fantastic, and that Shreemec arch on the top of Horizon worked perfectly during that big Shreddit hit late into the fight. That being said, both of these robots really don't have the toughest schedules up ahead, with the biggest challenge for Shreddit and Horizon being Lucky and Monsoon respectively. If these two teams cannot progress past how they performed in this fight, we're likely going to be seeing two robots well on their way to a 1-3 and 0-4 season respectively. And now finally, moving on to our main event, we have perhaps the two most shocking 0-1s from the first round in Hypershock and Whiplash, two machines which were a part of the TCC overall top 20 rankings last year, now trying to avoid an 0-2 hole. The 2020 runner-up Whiplash was humiliated and outdriven during a round 1 midway major versus Mad Catter and Calvin Eba, while Hypershock, TCC's #1 overall ranked robot at the time, would be dominated by Sawblaze during the episode 2 opener. Both of these teams did have some repairs to make, but Hypershock made it away better here at least, only needing to replace some of its wheels and paneling on the Hypershock body. Meanwhile, Whiplash needed a completely new frame, and with Jason Vasquez reportedly gone for this season, I'm sure Fast Electric Robotics is feeling the lack of manpower big time after a brutal fight versus Mad Catter like that. Entering this fight though, moving forward here, we'd see minimal changes to both robots surprisingly, with Hypershock looking just as it did with round 1, while Whiplash much similar, but it did ditch those 6 short forks for 2 long forks up front instead. The battle for early playoff despeраcy kicked off with some jockeying for position, but Whiplash would draw first blood and even find some control in the opening 10 seconds here, flipping Hypershock upside down with a hard lifting strike, exposing the vertical spinner's weakness. Because of this, Hypershock would lose nearly the full opening minute of the fight trying to not be flipped over, even going onto the upper deck amidst the process, but Hypershock would eventually bounce back and right itself by using Whiplash of all things, striking it twice and upending itself for the save here. After this, Whale Bales immediately made up for lost time, keeping the fight in his control the rest of the way with a non-stop barrage of vertical spinner strikes, juggling Whiplash all the way to the 1-minute 37 marker of the fight, where Hypershock would rip off one of Whiplash's top panels here, forcing batteries to fly out of Whiplash nearly immediately. And not even a few seconds later, one of these batteries would be struck by either Hypershock or Whiplash, leading to a Lipofire and a dead Whiplash inside the battle box at 1 minute and 48 seconds, 9 seconds shorter than their loss to Mad Catter, as Whiplash's lifting arm would slowly raise up and then lift down as the machine was dead, being counted out. You know, every season it feels like we see some true stud of the sport have a season of nightmares and fall down the aisles of relevance. It was Bronco in 2019, I Still Cry, Tombstone in 2020, Lockjaw in 2021, and perhaps Whiplash maybe joining that club, as according to Kenny Florian, this is the first time in Whiplash's 5+ year career going back to RoboGames 2017 that the robot has ever lost 2 fights in a row. Whiplash is now an abysmal 0-2, and Hypershock, my pick to win the Giant Nut, can breathe a little bit at 1-1, knowing that a meeting with Claw Viper is on the horizon. Both robots did look marginally better here and still have a shot at making the playoffs, I would say. But for Whiplash, it's going to need a near perfect second half of the year if it wants to survive. And that likely means dominant judges' decisions or even knockouts against Monsoon and the defending Battlebots champion Tantrum, who is also having some playoff struggles. That's going to do it, though. As we always say here at the Combot Collective, 7 fights up, 7 fights down, and it was certainly an episode, I would say. You know, now we're getting more to the middle of the season, the meat, the potatoes of Battlebots, I would say. We're past the round 1 gremlins. Hopefully we're going to see less abrupt ends to these fights, and we're going to start seeing some real high-quality matchups, much similar to the vein of Emulsifier versus Fusion. Easily the best fight of round 1 now that we've seen all the round 1 fights. But talking about round 2 here, we are seeing some robots make those early jumps to get ahead here. Quantum and Hypershock, of course. A ton of people are already talking about these robots. Quantum, the first 2-0 machine. I think we're going to be seeing both of those robots highly seeded in the playoffs. And maybe this year, Quantum can get past the top 16. You know, they had to go through top 24 in 2019, reach a top 16, but lost incredibly quickly to Tombstone in an absolute dream match. The robots clearly improved from that season. The machine seems faster. The crusher seems better. It seems more durable for sure. I mean, it looked great versus Captain Shreddit. So I really do wish the best for Quantum. I love seeing these crushers do well. And I know the Combot Collective's Captain Mantine, whose favorite robot is Quantum, is certainly happy with his performance. Talking about some other robots here, certainly some disappointing showings for machines like Horizon and Shreddit Bro. Hopefully those guys can get it going a bit better, especially for Team Shreddit Bro. You know, so many of those guys have been on the Combot Collective on shows like After the Havoc. I want the best for that crew, and I also want the best for Starchild, of course. Our buddies at robotsruinmylife.com, by the way, mentioning it one more time. Our sponsor, robotsruinmylife.com. Check them out in the description below and check out the giveaway if you want a chance to win this tote bag and all these amazing goodies that I'm checking out inside of here right now. Of course, the patch, the poker chips, the stickers. But yeah, I wish the best for Starchild. It was a tricky opponent in round 1 versus Overhaul. Hopefully they can move forward here. I think they can beat the likes of Huge and Mammoth, but we're just going to have to see how that plays out. And of course, that main event. What a main event it was. Hypershock, keeping my championship hopes alive. I have it winning the Giant Nut this year. I hope I'm right. Whiplash, meanwhile. You know, so many seasons ago, I really wasn't that big of a Whiplash fan, but Whiplash has really won me over, you know, seeing the teams expand with Defender, knowing that Matthew Vasquez is such a huge follower of the Combot Collective. He's always liking our Instagram posts. I hope we see Whiplash go 2-2. I never thought I'd say it, but it really wouldn't be the playoffs without Whiplash. Well, let's go ahead and wrap you guys up here. That's enough talking about the episode. I am very excited for episode 5. We are finally going to see an alternate battle with Double Tap versus Doomba. I am so excited to see Double Tap fight. I hope they can pick up the win here. But I digress. Like I said, let's go ahead and get you out of here. I am your host, as always, Sterling Brown. You can follow me on Instagram at SterlingTXTG. And as for the Combot Collective, we have a Discord server. All of our video upload news, live stream news, robot combat news, it goes there first. So join the server. Our invite link is in the description below. We have robot combat fans and builders chatting there all the time. Be sure to check it out. And of course, we also have a Instagram and Facebook where all of our updates also go. Be sure to follow those. They're in the description below. And of course, the YouTube page where you're at right now. Like I said at the top of the video, please give this video a like, leave a comment giving us your thoughts about all the action which went down here at episode 4, and give us a little bit of constructive criticism. We always love seeing that here at the Combot Collective. And of course, please, please, please subscribe to us here. Ring that bell icon so hopefully we can see you here again and again and again with more robot combat news, more live event news, and most importantly, more Battlebots news. So that's going to wrap it up for me here at the Combot Collective. I'm your host, as always, Sterling Brown. We will see you next time.
This was the Combot Collective. Find us on Instagram and Discord.